the verbiage and the language and everything else like that is like that's where I wish CJ were out there. Remember in the Netflix series Quarterback wins and the other quarterbacks around for the league, Pat Mahomes and everybody. The one big thing that I loved about that was Kirk Cousins in the middle of the NFL season just working nonstop on getting the verbiage out because it changes and it can be complex and everything else like that. There's a little bit of a muscle memory element when it comes to just actually getting the calls out, doing all of that. The offensive line has it, the wide receivers to a certain extent do. And these reps with a brand new offensive coordinator are important, especially when, as Caley was saying, you know, there's different terminology that you use with different coordinators, and a lot of times you're running the same play, but the verbiage is completely different. That part of it is where CJ, it's not a huge deal at this point that his shoulder is limiting him, except it would be better. It'd be ideal if you were out there just getting all these reps. Most offensive coordinators want to basically install the bulk of the offense in OTAs so that everybody's gone through it once. And then when you come back to training camp, you install it again, so you're getting more reps just kind of going through the same syllabus. And CJ's missing out on that. And he's getting the mental reps and everything else like that, but it's just not the same as him actually being out there directing traffic.
So we talk about the mental reps, but the physicality, that's the part that you were waiting to get to. Let's hear from Nick Caley on the non-negotiable for this Texans offense.
Yes. It's an extent. Everybody will block. We're going to be committed to that in the run game. That's part of who we are. That's toughness. That's physicality. I think that's a non-negotiable, period. So
together, the mental, the intentionality, the physicality, I feel like it all needed to come together for this Texans offense, man.
And I think that question was specifically about the offensive line. And it was I really couldn't hear the questions the other day. It was basically, it sounded like the question was, is it going to be important for your offensive line to be physical? And for him to give that answer, okay, I like that he said non-negotiable. It's all lip service at this point in time until you get out there in pads. But the most jarring thing about the offense last year was how much less swarmy they were than the defensive side of the ball. The defense is playing the exact same way that you'd expect the DeMeco Ryans defense to play. Whereas on the offense, it felt like a whole lot of like, oh, did you see the new shoes I bought yesterday?
Yes.
Oh, hey, watch out, CJ. Oh, sorry about that. I'll try not to do it now. Oh, I did it again.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just false start instead. And then nobody can't quarterback can't get sacked on a play that gets blown dead before the snap. Yeah. The offensive line was everything that you don't want your offensive line to be. They were not physical at all for much of the year. The individuals, it was hard to find. Like Laramie Tunsil, as good as he is, he's the exact opposite of physicality. Like Trent Williams and wait, why am I saying Trent Williams?
I mean, he counts. Trent Williams would be one, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, Trent Williams for the 49. Yeah, he is physicality. You're on the right track there, Seth.
Trent Brown was stuck in my head, so when I said Trent Williams, it sounded weird. Trent Williams had also a very good pass protector at left tackle. Laramie Tunsil was very much a finesse player, and there was no physicality to him. So I think when you look at what kind of if the Texans and if DeMeco Ryans is going to actually live out his own propaganda, which is tough, physical, all these things, we can't have this offensive line full of guys that are just playing patty cakes out there. So the young guys, I think there's hope for Juice Scruggs. There's hope for Jarrett Patterson that those guys can develop into physical players. It's just in that environment last year, we didn't see it. And that's got to be a huge focus for this team in training camp once they do actually put the pads on.
Seth, I like what you mentioned about the offense not feeling nearly as swarmy as the defense, true to the DeMeco Ryans mantra. And you and Sean do a pretty good job of talking about this quite frequently, but that was the most jarring part. It'd be one thing if it was just a soft team or if it just was not a physical team, but the stark contrast between the defense's swarminess, again, true to the propaganda as you mentioned, and the offense being just like completely against it, was just it was a striking contrast for me. I do wonder, and I'm curious what you think about this, I do wonder how much more of a role, I should say, because he's the head coach. Of course he has a role. but how much more of a role, how much more of an influence will DeMeco Ryans have, if not like schematically? Obviously, it's going to be Nick Caley's job to figure out the schemes, the play calls, and all of that influence could be on the offense. How is DeMeco Ryans' role as a head coach going to change? And I want to shout out the 832 for actually asking this on the text line. How does DeMeco Ryans' role as a head coach change with his second offensive coordinator and also trying to establish this identity that they've been able to establish over the past couple of years on the defensive side that has not quite translated on the offensive side? I'm curious to what kind of role DeMeco Ryans is going to have in that, aside from just simply hiring Nick Caley and giving him the keys.
Right. So that's always been the big question with any offensive or defensive-minded coach. How, with Gary Kubiak, we saw, Kubiak came in, did some promising things with the offense. It took a while for everything to get going, but the defense was just an absolute disaster for the first few years that Gary Kubiak was here. And then finally they get Wade Phillips in, who can be basically the head coach of the defense, and they were off to the races. And that was a pretty unique dynamic, and it worked out well until everything, fell apart. This is different. This isn't. You're not hiring an offensive coordinator who's been there, done that, can be the head coach of the offense. It's $1 million question. Is all right. Matt Burke's out there answering questions on Friday as the defensive coordinator, and yet it's DeMeco's defense, and it still very much feels like DeMeco is he's the head defensive coordinator. Matt Burke's the assistant defensive coordinator. At some point, especially with a young offensive coordinator, I think that DeMeco, great thing they've been doing on defense, but also be sure that the entire team is falling in line with the way that they want to operate. You can cherry pick the Super Bowl winners who have done it with a great defense and mediocre play on offense. The Bucks. And who am I missing? I'm missing at least one notable. Oh, the Ravens, perhaps.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the first Ravens Super Bowl. But it's a much better formula, especially when you have a quarterback like C.J. Stroud, to have both a really good offense and a really good defense. So I don't know. It's not like DeMeco doesn't spend time with both units, but in training camp, you very much get the feel that, all right, this is DeMeco versus the offense.
Yeah.
This is, remember Tank Dell kind of joked about it when he was on that podcast last year saying, he said something like, my only complaint about DeMeco is that when the defense plays really well, it was a great practice. When the offense plays really well, hey guys, we got to pick it up, man. Things aren't going the way we need to go. Tank was totally joking. At the same time, though, there is that dynamic. Because with various times, I remember thinking the same thing with David Culley and Lovie Smith after games sometimes, where Lovie would almost be upset that after a loss, people weren't acknowledging how well the defense played, and vice versa. After with Culley, he had very much an offensive emphasis on things. It can start to grate against you over time, and I think for what this team needs, you look at it last year, the offense was not championship caliber. You can't win a Super Bowl with that offense. That's the part, as the head football coach, that is the part of the team that needs your focus and attention. And that's what does it look like? Most of that's behind the scenes and whatnot. But I think that is a change that DeMeco's going to have to work on.
Yeah, at various points over the last couple of years, I feel like we've talked about the collective we, right? I feel like we've talked about the honeymoon phase ending. When does the honeymoon phase with DeMeco Ryans, being a former player here, being a former captain here, being a beloved figure here already before he ever coached for the Texans, at what point does a little bit of that shine sort of wear off? And then to his credit and to the Texans' credit, they won 10 games in back-to-back seasons. They won a playoff game in back-to-back seasons. It's like, okay, so why would the honeymoon phase end? Loved DeMeco before he got here, and it's been a resounding success, at least record-wise, since he got here. But I think this is the thing that people are looking out for. This is the part of the shine that has worn off of like, okay, DeMeco, we love you. We know you're a great defensive mind, but we do need to see this offense take the next step. And we understand you're not an offensive coach, but as the head coach, you are being entrusted with hiring the right folks. You've obviously got the influence with personnel, and Nick Caserio is operating with your vision and your sort of mantra in mind. On the other side of the ball, I feel like this is the one part that has some Texans fans skeptical, not necessarily just about DeMeco Ryans, but this whole sort of operation. Like at what point does the offense take the next step under DeMeco Ryans, I think is a valid question. And as far as the physicality goes, it is interesting because it's not like DeMeco Ryans was not coaching them up to be physical or was coaching them, telling them to be soft, right? Like, I don't think the way the offense has played has necessarily been a reflection of DeMeco Ryans, right? I just think that for a number of reasons, personnel and coaching, it just hasn't quite translated. It absolutely needs to this year. And maybe, Seth, maybe it's just going to be a matter of getting the right guys in here. And who knows, maybe that's what they've done. It could be a matter of just getting the right guys in here who can actually execute and do the thing that he's been wanting them to do all along. It's not like he was going to ever throw the offensive line under the bus or say these guys weren't physical enough. But based on the turnover,
narrative,
or the
false narrative that the offensive line is struggling.
Yeah. Like he had to protect his guys, but you can just read the tea leaves or read between the lines based off of the personnel changes that they've made on the offensive line coach being a different guy now. Like, all of those things to me indicate that DeMeco Ryans is trying to help make this offense to be much more in his vision and be more physical than it was before.
The non-answer we got from both DeMeco and Caley last week about C.J. Stroud, it turns out it probably was something really minor. Just give me a little bit. Could you give a little bit of specificity? I had an issue with that. I was okay with this lack of specificity when Nick Caley was asked what his offense will look like.
Well, it depends on the players we got, and that's not a cop-out. That's the reality of it. So it can evolve, be willing to change and do whatever we need to do that's necessary based on who we have and who we're playing. Whether that's, again, you want to get big in terms of multiple personnel or not, gap schemes or zone schemes, committing to more play action or not, that's going to really be dependent on, what your personnel dictates and who you have available. So, again, that's the great part about this year is we get to do a lot of different things and really put a lot of guys in different positions to run certain routes, some of these guys have never done anything, or certain routes that we have, and they might be just exclusively outside receivers that we're working inside and vice versa. So it's a good opportunity just to see what these guys can do.
So when Bill O'Brien first came in, remember one of the complaints about Gary Kubiak had been, man, they just go out and run the same offense no matter who the opponent is whatsoever. And Bill O'Brien came in, and in the opening press conference, he said, we're going to be a game plan offense. And we got so excited because, yeah, just like New England, you're going to go in, you're going to do it. Sometimes it'll be an outside zone team. Sometimes it'll be gap scheme. Sometimes it'll be a play action team. The Patriots under Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, at times they were a running team, at other times they were a pure passing team. We're just going to do whatever it takes. It's awesome. I do love that philosophy. But you just got to go out and execute it. It's easier said than done. The thing that I'm optimistic about with Caley is that with O'Brien, one of the issues I had with O'Brien, super smart, but when it came down to actually executing the game plan and doing things in a technically sound manner, when it came to fundamentals, the offense never looked well coached to me.
Yeah.
And that's where the disconnect sometimes goes from the whiteboard to the practice field to the playing field. It's not enough to be smart. The old Bum Phillips saying, it's not what they know, it's what you can get them to do. It's not enough to be smart. It's not enough to out-scheme them. You actually got to get guys to execute. That's where it fell short. The thing that I like about Caley so far is that every time I've heard him speak, he really hammers home the fundamentals and how important the basics are and all of that. And on the actual, with the boots on the ground, how are you doing that? You can have a brilliant battle plan, but if your troops are scattered about all over the place, drunk all the time, it's hard to execute that battle plan. So far, without any games being played, I at least feel better about his philosophy and his methodology.
Yeah, that cut that we just played, it sounded really eerily similar to the game plan offense, which I know for a lot of Texans fans now, based off of the Bill O'Brien experience and the whole Patriot South thing, it gets a big eye roll from a lot of people when they hear about the game plan offense stuff. But I do like, just in a vacuum, I do like hearing him talk about, hey, we're not going to be pigeonholed into, like, they're going to have an identity. They're going to have things that they're true to or want to be true to, but they're also going to play to the strengths of their players. I do think there's a balance between, like, you don't want to be too game planny, right? But because you also don't want to try to fit square pegs and round holes. And I think that is going to be part of the balance for this coaching staff, is establishing its identity and standing on that, but also having a little bit of wiggle room to be able to change and recognize, hey, this is what we do well, this is perhaps what we don't, and so maybe we should move away from this and move toward this. It sounds simple enough, but for whatever reason, it hasn't been that simple for a lot of Texans teams over the past.
If you look at Slowick last year, I mean, Slowick just came out and said this himself. He said, I can't remember how many games into the season it was, but he admitted that, to his credit, we were kind of caught by surprise by how much just shell coverage, how much zone 2 we were seeing. And I credited him with admitting it, but, dude, you have these three speed demon wide receivers, and the league is transitioning towards playing more cover 2 in general, and somehow it caught you by surprise that this is the look you're seeing, and that, oh, crap, you know what? The best thing to do and the easiest thing to do when teams play all this shell coverage is to run the hell out of the ball or to dissect them with a quick game or over the middle. And they couldn't do it. They couldn't run the ball. Slowick himself didn't adjust to the way teams were playing them. It was maddening. So that's part of the changing. It's not just in the offseason. It's in the season. The one thing that I think that Brady and Belichick and McDaniels always did really well, and I think Sean McVay has done a really good job of in recent years in the Super Bowl to the Patriots, McVay realized, all right, I got to be way more flexible than this, and I got to realize, and I got to learn through the course of the season what is my team. And those old Patriots teams, a lot of times, it would take the first half of the season before they really knew exactly what they were good at and what they were struggling at, and then they would get really, really good in the second half of the season. Slowick was not ready for that. Slowick didn't adjust to the adjustments that other teams made in the offseason, and then he really couldn't stick and move in the regular season. And I don't know if Caley will be able to or not. Philosophically, and by what he's saying, it sounds like he wants to do that. We just got to see whether he can actually do it.
Man, I can appreciate and respect the loyalists on the text line. You can't even give, for some folks, you can't even give a timid critique of DeMeco Ryans without people reminding you of how great he is. I can respect it. From the 713, says Texans fans are ungrateful. Houston doesn't deserve DeMeco. I don't know what impression I was given there. Like I don't have faith in DeMeco.
Houston doesn't deserve DeMeco. No, what the hell are you even talking about? What is that? What is that, you cuck? What are you even? You know why? You know why that annoys me? It's like when people say, "Oh, we don't deserve dogs. People don't deserve dogs. We bred dogs. Dogs only exist because of us. You tell me I had to be grateful for this or grateful for that. Oh, my God. Houston doesn't deserve. What? We didn't even criticize DeMeco. We said, hey, he's a young coach. He's making that transition that every being focused on his side of the ball to be a complete and total head coach. DeMeco's done an outstanding job in these last couple of years, and there's absolutely nobody who's actually complaining about DeMeco right now.
Not at
you
all.
need to toughen up, sister. Okay, Houston doesn't deserve DeMeco. You sad little pathetic wretch. Oh, I don't deserve this. I can't believe a division championship isn't enough and people want more. I don't know why. Why would you want more in life? Go live in a commie country. You sad sack. Houston doesn't deserve DeMeco. Nobody's complaining about DeMeco. My God. You think DeMeco? This is the thing. This is the thing that upsets me about that. Do you really think DeMeco in the offseason isn't thinking about the things that he needs to improve on and tweak? Because I believe he is.
I hope the guy he is.
Why would you insult? That person is insulting DeMeco Ryans. You, sir, do not deserve DeMeco Ryans because you have presented an image of a coach who thinks he's infallible. And I know for a fact, because I know DeMeco, you SOB, that that's not the way he operates. So for you to try to present D'Amico as somebody who needs to be protected from an attack that doesn't actually exist? No, you don't deserve D'Amico Ryans.
That was just from the 713. That's not even the only text week. I don't know what impression that we were getting.
Why, quit being so soft, you little panda. What the hell? What the hell are you even talking? Nobody's hacking D'Amico Ryans. What the hell are you guys talking about? What on earth are you talking about?
No, from the 832, Seth. D'Amico is not going anywhere, guys. He is more beloved in this city.
Of course he's not. You stupid bastards. Of course he's not. Well, of course he's not going anywhere. What on earth are you talking about? Why are you so soft on a Monday? This week is gonna kick your ass. Get your crap together and stop being so soft. My God,
everybody.
All because we dare to say that we want the offense to reflect what, Seth? D'Amico's defense.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
you're not gonna. This is bad, man. You guys got to do some serious self-reflection. And for you to say that, hey, D'Amico's not going anywhere. Where did we ever suggest or hint that somehow D'Amico's job was at risk? What the hell are you talking about?
Hey, look.
How can you be this stupid? Honestly, I fear for you. Get off the road. Pull over. You are not fit to drive. Oh. It's disgusting. I feel bad for your children. They have to live with you. Yeah, that's my dad over there. He's the one that's making up stories about how people are coming after D'Amico's job.
I agree with the 713 who says we don't deserve Seth Payne. We don't deserve Seth Payne.
That's true. That's not true at all. You all do. Everybody except the ones of you are soft.
So you mentioned
D'Amico's not going in. Update sport.
Hey, newsflash. Do you have I don't think Ben has the breaking news sounder ready for us, but hey, newsflash, everybody. Houston, I don't think you're aware, but look, at 7:27, we have some news to report. Exclusive to Sports Radio 610. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. D'Amico Ryans. Not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere. Yeah, I wouldn't have known that if it weren't for the text.
Well, that's why you listen to Sports Radio 610, man. So you can get exclusive content like that.
Honestly, it's where I get most frustrated when people act like somehow being a fan of a team means that you accept them as the perfect. It's just like one notch below Jesus. Couldn't be any different than this. Yes. No. D'Amico doesn't have to work on anything. D'Amico's just fine. No. Oh wait, you question the supreme leader? That's why you're a commie. That's why you're a commie. You are susceptible to communism because in communism. This is why communism ultimately doesn't work out is because you can't have dissent. It has to be 100% across the board. That's and then despotism creeps in because with no dissent, then whoever takes charge can do whatever they want. These guys would be ripe for it. They'd be like, yes, Supreme Leader. Yeah, how many? 10% of the population you want me to starve? Okay, I'll do that, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You commie bastard. Get out of my fan base. You hate America and you hate D'Amico Ryans without even realizing. By virtue of you thinking that D'Amico Ryans needs to be defended, it tells me that you don't know D'Amico Ryans because we weren't even attacking him. You softy.
I love that this is why communism doesn't work. Out of all the things,
it is. It's bad Texans fans. They don't deserve freedom, Sean, Brandon.
Sean, Brandon, all of us. Everybody who can hear the sound of Seth Payne's voice, understand right now the wussification of America, the inability to take in criticism, and I mentioned tepid criticism, just like a point being made, like, hey, you know what? We'd like to see the offense look more like the defense to have a similar mentality. I even said last year that I wanted the offense. This is a bad sign, Seth. I wanted the offensive line to play more like the running back, to have like Joe Mixon. That's a swarmy dude. That's a dude that's about that action. That's a dude that's physical. I hated that the most physical dude on the offense, the one that seemed to be most bout it, was the damn running back and not the big-ass dudes that was charged with blocking in front of him. Like that, that infuriated me because I could see it in Joe Mixon. I could see the dog in Joe Mixon if only the offensive line had the same level of dog in them that he did. It frustrated the hell out of me.
the number of guys that had swarm mentality on offense, we put it pretty much at, unfortunately, once Tank Dell went down, and, Tank wasn't, performing up to a lot of lofty expectations last year, but he plays with a swarm mentality. Stephon Diggs plays with a swarm mentality. You got 8 games out of him. Nico Collins plays with a swarm mentality. CJ, quarterbacks are kind of out of the, it's not a kind of, he's got some swarm to him by quarterback standards. And that was pretty much about it. Along with guys like that. And I think that's why you end up completely revamping your offensive line.